Look, I'm not here to drag down Arcane Season 2 into the mud. I really like Arcane Season 2. I still think that even with all its flaws, and it is more flawed than Season 1, it's still one of the best animated pieces of media that we got all year. But there is one thing, it's the biggest flaw in Arcane Season 2, and that's Isha. Spoilers for Arcane Season 2, probably also Arcane. In Act 2 of Arcane Season 2, Isha sacrificed herself to stop Vander, stop Warwick, but after Act 3 of Arcane, I just have to ask, what was the point of Isha's sacrifice? What was the point of her sacrifice? I keep thinking about it. To me, that's the biggest flaw in Arcane. I think Act 1 is really solid in Act 2. With the hindsight of Act 3, I think Act 2, it doesn't work. Vi's depression arc, how she and Caitlyn just never talk about what happens. Caitlyn just kind of switches sides. It's like the big climactic moment at the end of Act 2, where Isha sacrifices herself for Jinx and Vi, and it's such a good moment, isolated in time. But then Act 3 comes around, and it's fine. Episode 7 is fantastic. I think I'm not the first to say it, I'm not the last to say it. And then I think it's in episode 8 that we see Warwick. We see that, oh, he survived. Like, Isha herself up and blew everyone in the area up, except for the main characters. And oh, Warwick survived. And not only do we see that Warwick is alive, but Vander is also still in there. When Victor just turns him fully into Warwick, we see Vander actually die. We see his memories. It's a very sweet moment, but also, what did Isha accomplish exactly? She didn't kill Vander. She didn't stop Warwick. In fact, she actually gave the antagonists of the show, she actually gave them Warwick on a silver platter, it seems like. Like, how would no one have noticed that they took Vander's body? If after the explosion, Warwick was still alive, why wouldn't Vi have taken his body? I understand Jinx would be distraught and she'd probably not care anymore, but why wouldn't Vi go to try and get his body? If it's still there, if it's still intact, why wouldn't she go and try and get his body? To give him like a proper burial, or to burn it to prevent him from being revived somehow again. And if Isha blew up all the Noxians, how were they able to get her body? Or how were they able to get Warwick's body? How did Warwick survive the explosion? It's not even what was the point of Isha, it's what was the point of her sacrifice? To make Jinx turbo depressed? Look, I like her moment with Echo a lot, where Echo stops her from doing a YouTube unsafe for to herself. It's just that Jinx was already depressed, and all Isha's sacrifice does is reset her arc to episode 1 of season 2. Episode 1 of Act 1. It just resets her arc back to where she was at the beginning of Act 1. So that's literally all it accomplishes. Because what did Isha even do? The Noxians didn't seem to take that much of a blow. If a bunch of their officers and generals or whatever, if they were killed, like Ambessa didn't care. She wasn't like, those Zonites really did a number on our forces. Like, no, she had an infinite respawn of Noxians ready to go for the final battle. There is a way to make the sacrifice work, and the way to make it work was for Isha to have killed Vander. At least she does something, even if it's a tiny thing. I wish that by doing what she did, she killed off the last piece of Vander that Victor was bringing to the surface. And so all that's left is the empty shell of Warwick. We wouldn't get that very sweet moment where his memories of everyone in like the watercolor style are being erased again. But Isha's sacrifice would have accomplished something. She has freed Vander from the shell of Warwick. That way we can have our cake and eat it too. Even if she ended up giving the antagonist Warwick, I feel like that would excuse Vi for not trying to retrieve his body, or not fighting and doing everything she can to get his body and not allow it to be tampered with again. Like, maybe after the explosion, like the smoke is clearing, like Vi is running through the smoke and she goes to Vander's body and she attempts to maybe lift him or maybe talk to him. She looks into his eyes and his eyes are empty. Like, there's literally nothing there. And she would leave his body there because she has just lost, actually like the third time that Vi has lost her father figure. Because she lost her father, and then she lost Vander, and then she loses him again. And I feel like that would excuse her for leaving the body. Because she can't do it again. And I feel like that would add so much to see her like briefly crying over the body, and then she like runs away. because she just can't do it. She can't do it again. And then we see Ambessa walking up through the smoke, and Ambessa's such a great character. She easily carries season 2 of Arcane. And I actually like that she died. I like that she died at the end of Act 3 because I really don't like when characters overstay their welcome. Like when characters have this great arc and the writers don't want to kill them off anymore, so they just linger and become worse over time. I'm very glad that Ambessa died at her peak. She was at the peak of her character writing and she died. And I'm glad for it. But maybe I also like season 2 so much because Ambessa really did carry the season on her back. On her very broad, very muscled back. She carried the season on her back. I also think that the trailers for Arcane season 2 were so misleading because it promises a very different story than it delivers. And also the trailers promising like Piltover Vi, where she only wears the Piltover security outfit for like half an episode and then never again. I can just very easily see why some people were kind of heavily let down by Arcane Season 2, and it's because of the expectations that Arcane set up in its trailers and promotional material and the stuff that they released. Like, they did it to themselves. They set up the expectation that certain things would happen, and then they don't happen. Like Jinx becoming a revolutionary. I don't really mind that the Zaun Piltover plot was not resolved. It wasn't resolved because there's more story to tell in Piltover versus Zaun. Like they can't end it when certain champions, I guess, because I don't play League, and I'm also not going to play League. They can't end it when certain plot lines from the game haven't happened yet, or Arcane's version of those plot lines. But I wish we saw Jinx embrace the role of a revolutionary more. Like she became to Zaun what Silco was. I mean, she still did, but she didn't do anything to earn it. She just kind of was. Because as it is, Jinx blows up the council and then does nothing. She just kind of exists. If we had one episode full of all the cut content, I think that would solve just about everything. I just wish we got even half an episode of her attempting to get the Cambarans in line. Even with the problems I have with Isha's sacrifice, the problem I have with Jinx's arc, I still feel like Arcane is a fantastic piece of media. There are problems, like there are a lot more cracks, and Isha's sacrifice is probably the biggest crack in my opinion because it just doesn't make any sense. Once Act 3 passes and you look back at that moment, it's like, why did she do that? For what purpose? It's not a 10 out of 10. I would never say it's a 10 out of 10. I would say the first season is probably the closest to 10 out of 10 that any piece of media can get. Even with the problems that I have with Isha's sacrifice, I never stopped enjoying myself. Like, I still watched it all the way through and I still enjoyed every single episode. And I think that's why Arcane Season 2 is above average to me. I think the most important part of me is insane. The most important part of a show to me is that it keeps your attention. Like, it keeps you engrossed all the way through. There are shows that aren't perfect, there are shows that haven't aged well, but it's still so enjoyable that the flaws don't detract from the experience. And that's how I feel about Arcane Season 2. And there are some genuine episodes that are 10 out of 10, like episode 7. And episode 6 is a little complicated because, like I said, in hindsight, it's worse. But like thinking of how I felt in the moment, watching Isha run and like do Jinx's pose and sacrifice herself, like in the moment, the shock and awe, and like I was at the edge of my seat watching it happen. Even if later it's like, okay, but why? Like you could feel Jinx's despair in that moment. Just like in episode 9, you can feel Vi's despair. Even if you don't believe for a second that Jinx dies, you can still like feel her despair. And I feel like that's where Arcane Season 2 excels. But this video will probably come out long after the discussions for Arcane Season 2 has ended, and I'm aware of that. The reason that I ramble at the end of my videos, like you can tell when I run out of things to say and then I'm just like, what do I say so I can leave? It's like talking to someone in real life and then you run out of steam and then you just go silent. And then you're just like, conversation's over. I guess we go home. Like, what do I say? You guys have a good, yep.